Today I'm going to be talking about my social anxiety and particularly how I healed it, how it has been throughout my life, and how last November of 2025, a huge, very interesting event took place that shifted my reality with social anxiety completely from a very spiritual perspective. So, I've already done videos talking about my overall mental and physical health chronologically, as well as a video specifically about my anxiety and how I healed it. So this video is going to be particular about my social anxiety. So as a bit of a background with my social anxiety, I always have viewed myself as a very quiet and shy person, just very reserved. And I also have autism, and I have been very high masking throughout my entire life, where I really observed and saw all the social dynamics and just tried to enact them. And in particular, with my trauma response to um, chronic trauma, has been to people please. So, also, and this is just a general trigger warning for mental health issues. I've had suicidal ideation all my life, or at least since the age of 4, and I never really wanted to be here. So when I was interacting with other people, it was very much as a people pleaser, not that I wanted to be there, but that I just wanted to avoid conflict and like be a person for other people. And so I always seem to have like a lot of wisdom and knowledge innately where I could see where people were struggling. I wanted to help them with their issues, have them help them see perspectives of like another person if they were in conflict. So I was always trying to mediate and mend relationships and mend conflict. And I always put my feelings, pushed them down, and pretended I was fine all the time to avoid people being sad that I was sad and doing unwell. I also just thought there wasn't any way for me to get better, and throughout my life, I consistently got worse and worse in my mental and physical health. So I thought that was just how things were for me, and there wasn't really another option. So since I didn't really want to be here, I thought I might as well try to just fix everyone else, which is a terrible mindset to have. Not that I blame myself as a child, but when you try to do that, you're basically taking on other people's karma and you're preventing them from learning the lesson. So, as much as I would try to explain things to people and genuinely just, I realize now what my soul is very good at is educating and seeing what's going on with people. So, as much as I would tell people the information, it wouldn't really be stored on like a cellular level where they're able to act that out. Instead, it was more just comforting to feel validated, to feel heard, to feel like they're being helped. But while I was being very nice, I actually wasn't being very kind because I wasn't allowing them to grow by giving them all the answers, and the answers they weren't able to actually enact because they weren't taking it on physically like a change. It's more like when you hear something but you don't understand it, basically. So also, as a child, I just had a hard time interacting with my peers. I really just repeated anything anyone else was saying, so I acted very differently depending on who I was around and just tried to say what everyone else was saying, even in some instances, especially like in work settings as an adult, just dress how everyone else is dressing, to try to just fit in and like be aligned and be a part of something, but I never really truly was myself, which is for a lot of reasons I've mentioned in other videos, like certain traumas of when I did share aspects of myself and that didn't work out. I can make other videos about how I did express myself in certain ways, but this one's more just about my social anxiety. So I would express myself to a degree, but it was very muted, and it had this constant idea of like shame and guilt and worrying about how I appeared to others. And so it was very stressful. But basically, to go over kind of how I got here, in 2024, I had a spiritual awakening. All my mental and physical health issues I dealt with my whole life disappeared for 3 weeks. And then I spent about a year and a half healing all of that. And so while listening to all my intrusive thoughts for like a solid 3 months, helped like purge pretty much all of the anxiety, like when I was by myself in particular. What I had yet to heal was how I was interacting with other people. So I explained so far how I interacted with other people so far. Completely as a people pleaser. I didn't have any boundaries. I didn't stand up for myself. I wouldn't tell people if I was hurt, like emotionally by them. And I wouldn't even say like my wants or desires necessarily if I thought it would cause tension or conflict. I was just trying to be a person for other people, especially because I didn't want to be here. And so if I was a person that someone else wanted as a person, then it's like I could attach to an identity of being like their person or a person who lifted them up, because I would get a lot of praise for the wisdom I do have and for being kind and supportive. Really, I was being nice. Again, not very kind, because it's not actually helpful what I was doing in the long run, while it does smooth things over in the short term. So in 2021, I had an autistic shutdown where, that's not the right word, meltdown, shutdown, burnout. I had an autistic burnout, and it caused me to never again be able to mask or to people please. And that was my entire coping mechanism other than like dissociation. So that was terrifying. And now it was just like physically painful to mask, and it never had been for me before, like to this extent where I just couldn't do it. And so I started for the first time in my life getting really, really angry. Like I had been angry about like social issues before, but I never been angry about feeling misunderstood or feeling hurt by other people. Like I was internally, but I never ever expressed it. Just extremely rarely in certain situations. But so now for like maybe 2 years after that, like 2021 to maybe like 2023, or probably 2024 until I had that spiritual awakening, I was just really mad. I was mad, I was just explosive, and I never been like that before. And it went this huge pendulum swing from me people pleasing to me saying everything I thought, everything I was mad at that I had bottled up for my entire life. And to me at the time, it felt like that's what I ought to do. It also just felt like I didn't have another choice. Like it was very impulsive. And I wanted to remedy things. I wanted to like fix the relationships in my life so I could actually connect with people as who I am, as my authentic self, because I was only connecting with people from this like fake, really procured version of myself that I made for other people, and it wasn't really me. And now I didn't even have access to that anymore. And so I just needed to like tell people I was upset because I wanted to fix things. But as unhelpful as not saying why I was upset, it also unfortunately wasn't very helpful to just say why I'm upset in a very defensive way all the time, because then, well, that could cause other people to be defensive. So instead, it's better to regulate yourself and then come to people with your concerns in a more level-headed way, and like sort through your own trauma like internally before bringing up an issue. Because I also got so frustrated when things weren't like immediately getting solved either. I'm like, well, I finally opened up to you about this. We need to solve it immediately and then just move on. And so I guess I was still kind of in the mindset of people pleasing, of just wanting things to get smoothed over like in a fast way, but instead I was being very angry, but I still wanted the goal of, okay, and now things are fine, so we don't have to like think about it or talk about it again. So that's how I lived for a few years, up until my spiritual awakening. And when that happened, all my all my mental health issues went away, and as a result of that, for 3 weeks I wasn't like angry anymore. Like, I still felt upset about certain things, but it was like everything was just slowed down. I was so at peace. I waited a long time before talking. I didn't talk much. I listened a lot, and I was just like in complete zen, and it was beautiful. And after that, it ended. And I was more in a place then of of still being really upset, where I was still really angry, but I was just telling people I was angry like in a slower way. But I was really confused like how to do it. Like, I didn't know at all like how to replicate how I was during those 3 weeks of my spiritual awakening. Like, I didn't know how to get back to that place. And I have a lot more knowledge now that's a lot more grounded. So even in that place, it was almost more the facade of being that way. It felt very real. But now I can do it sustainably, and not just because I feel good, but I can do it when I'm feeling bad. And I can do it in a way that is really shifts things. But I didn't know how to do it. So basically what I was doing after that, and now getting up until November of last year, which I'm so excited to talk about. Basically, the interactions I was having with people, I was like, well, I don't want to people please anymore. I don't want to smile when I don't want to smile, laugh at jokes I don't think are funny. And in particular, as I've spoken about here on YouTube and on TikTok, I've really, in the last few years, just been extremely conscious of the words I'm using, where I'm looking things up to see if they're sexist or racist or ableist or fatphobic. Really common words that we use just constantly in our everyday vocabulary. For example, like stupid, weird, crazy, for example. But there's a plethora of others, and ones I'm still learning. Still, like when I talk to people or watch things online, if there's a word that I'm confused about, I'll look up the origins of it and then remove it from my vocabulary, or not, depending on where it came from, basically. So basically I was like, well, I'm not gonna people please, but also I thought the only options was pretending I was okay with what people were saying, or right then in the moment saying, in a respectful, like kind, tempered way, oh, hey, I just wanted to let you know. Because I'm so excited when people tell me and like inform me about words I'm using or new concepts. I'm like so excited to integrate that into how I'm living and how I'm doing things, or, remove certain things from how I'm speaking. And so when I talk to people and I say, oh, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I'll use the word for weird, for example, like, hey, I notice you use the word weird often, and I just want to let you know that's actually like an ableist term that's been used for autistic people. And so I think even autistic people like myself ought to eliminate that from our vocabulary in a general sense, and instead, as an autistic person, reclaim that when we're talking about ourselves or things that are weird as an authentic, but in the way that you're using it, like, oh, it was the weather was so weird today, right? I think we ought not to generalize it, so it can be more specific and less ableist. And so, like, I would explain things like that, just genuinely really excited. Same with words, again, like stupid, or smart as well, and a lot of AAVE. And so I'm just so excited to share these things with people, and I'm so excited to change the way I talk. However, not everyone is like open to, being told. I think sometimes it comes across as being told that they're doing something wrong, or it can cause shame or guilt, which I understand as a feeling. It's just I've processed that so much that when people tell me that, I just kind of phase it out of my body, and I'm just so used to being excited about changing and growing now. Um, so anyways, yeah, I realized I thought my two choices were either people please and pretend I was fine with things, which I physically couldn't do since 2021, or do what I just did. Say that, you know, say I'm talk how I talk. But the other things is sometimes people use like lack mindsets about things, which I really want to get into in other videos, where I'm not comfortable with that phrasing anymore. But that's a huge mind mindset shift, like even bigger than removing words. It's like thinking about how we're speaking about things, like in a lack mindset instead of an abundant mindset. And so I like to tell people my thoughts about that too, so they can learn and grow, and so we can connect, and so I can feel understood, because I do feel uncomfortable when people talk in a certain way, or use certain words, and I want to have a really connected time with people. So um, that's kind of how I feel. So, but knowing that some people tend to get upset when you like inform them about things like that, I thought then I would have to get angry like I did before, but I wasn't willing to like get angry or like act out of anger. Like I'm angry. I'm angry about a lot of things, but I don't act out of anger anymore. I just act out of love and compassion. And so I'm like, well, if someone's not willing to listen to what I'm saying in a kind, open way, or even say something like, hey, I appreciate that. That's a little overwhelming for me right now. Let's talk about that another time. Great. Thanks for telling me, right? But if someone's like coming back at me and they're really upset, I was like, well, my options again are either to people please, try to convince them of what I'm saying and argue back, which again, I'm not willing to convince anyone of anything anymore. Like I'll give you the information. If you want to learn more, you ask me, and we can have a conversation. I want to learn from you, but I am no longer willing to spend my energy debating people on anything for me personally. Um, Again, if it's not this mutual, like trying to learn from each other and understand. So I thought my third option was to take space, because I've been becoming extremely equipped at taking space, where if I'm upset, even though part of me just wants to figure it out, get the thing done and fix the relationship, that's how I used to be, I just take space. I just go and I'm like, hey, I'm really upset. I'm gonna take space. Or even just like, you know, I'm gonna go. Like not even really explaining what's happening, but I'll just leave. And that's been really healing for me to take space so I can regulate, give another person time to regulate, and then we can come back and like mend things. And I think that's really beautiful. So that's where I was at November in 2025, a few months ago, where basically I was able to, up until this point, like from my spiritual awakening till then, a little over a year, I was having minimal like social interactions. And if they were stressful, I would just stop talking to the person immediately, right? And I was like almost always voicing how I felt about things as well. And regardless, again, I wasn't people pleasing anymore. I might just like omit saying something, but I'm like, but then I'm not connecting, I'm not sharing what I think, and I want to just have really connected relationships with people. So I was really stressed because in November there was an event I was going to that wasn't just like, oh, I'm talking to one or two people for a small amount of time. It was like I'm talking to a bunch of people for a long amount of time. And I was really working myself up so much that I'm like, I don't I don't think I could do this. Like I think I might just want to stay home and not do this. I'm so stressed out and I don't know how to act. I can't people please. I'm not willing to get mad. I think I'm just gonna get there. It's gonna go terribly wrong, and I'm just gonna take space. Like after 2 minutes potentially of like, and I'm like, this is so pointless. Like how I couldn't see any way forward at this time to honor my body while also honoring my desires for social connection. So this is what I did, or rather what someone else did for me. So in a previous video, I'm just gonna take a minute to breathe and let it soak in. In another video, I talked about my relationship with Mother Gaia, and which is Mother Earth, and she really helped me in the summer of 2025. I was dysregulated, I was too hot, and I gave her permission to give me instructions of like how to do everything. So I made no choices, she made all the choices for me. And it was really beautiful. And then in October of 2025, I was having a rough time because I was basically told by an entity I hadn't interacted with up until that point. I was told by them, a part of my destiny, that I was having a hard time believing on a physical level, even though I knew it and know it on a soul level. And so I was having migraines, and after 2 weeks, I asked Mother Gaia for help, and she told me to ask that entity for help instead. And I had a bit of trust built up with this entity because for a few weeks I was having like daily conversations with them. But I hadn't thought of asking them or even trusting them that much to like guide me through my day like Mother Gaia was. But I did, and it worked out, and it was really incredible, like in a very different way than it felt with Mother Gaia, which I'll talk about at a later point in time. And yeah, it was just really wonderful and beautiful, and this entity helped me for several days from then until November, and in November as well. So we already kind of built up this relationship that if I was having a difficult time for whatever reason, I could rely on them to help me through my day. And again, that looked similar-ish to what Mother Gaia was doing, where I wouldn't make any choices, and you know, I can still choose not to do what they're saying, and I would sometimes, but it was working so smoothly I had no reason not to do what they were saying because it was working. So like they would say, okay, turn off that light, now grab that cup, now we're gonna make this food, now turn on your music, nope, skip that song, now fill up your water, now grab this fork, now oh, don't do that, actually grab this over here. Like that amount of telling me what to do, and it was beautiful, and it really worked out, helped me get regulated. I'm like, this is pretty cool, because like I felt like it was also an exercise of like opening up my heart, because like I've just been really hyper independent, and I always wanted to help everyone else, but I didn't really want any help or feel like I could really trust anyone, and I also didn't really want to be a person. So I didn't really want help. I just wanted to like help others and not really be here. Like if I could have just been observing, that would have been preferable to me. So now I was having this event. I didn't even know if I could go. I was so stressed. So what I did, maybe the day before, night before, maybe the morning of, is I asked my higher self, because that's who I was going to first at this time. Now I go to my middle self, if anyone at all, but usually I just do things now. But that took until like late January, early February to get to of this year. So the day of the event, I asked my higher self, do you have any advice for me? Like, can you help me, please? I'm freaking out. And they said, ask Mother Gaia. I'm like, Mother Gaia, can you help me? They said, ask that other entity that you've been working with to help you and have them guide you through your entire day. And I'm like, okay, I guess I can try that out. Like, worst comes to worst, I'll just say, I need to go, and I'll come back here and I'll take space and I won't do the event. Or maybe I'll take a break and go back. Like, that's what I thought it would be like. But it was incredible. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. It was so good. So I'm going to explain now what happened. So I thought it was going to be similar to this entity telling me what to do in the regard I just mentioned. Grab this, go here, do that, turn off that, you know, walk here, walk there. It was like 10 times more intense than that, which is just incredible because like when you're communicating with spirits and like telepathically like this and psychically, they can feel physiologically what's going on in your body in a way that physical people can do if they're tapped in that way. But that's more innate to like spiritual beings. So this spiritual being just knew exactly what was going on in my body, even sometimes to more awareness than I was if I was dysregulated. So I went over to this event and they were telling me to do everything immediately, way more in terms of I was talking to someone, it was dysregulating, and they weren't only telling me where to go and what to do, but way more specific, as in, okay, don't look at that person in the eye. Look over there. You can say A or B are good choices to say. Pick one of them. So I would pick one of them. Because again, I'm still choosing what I'm saying. I'm saying things I would say. It's not like they're literally giving me a script. So I'd say that thing. They said, okay, now look at that person. Now look over here. Now turn this way. Now shift your weight on one leg. Like, I never been told to like shift my weight a certain way to look at specific things. Like, this was way more specific. And so that was happening the entire time where they would tell me, okay, walk in another room to get some space. Okay, now go on your phone for a minute. Now put your phone down. Now stop having that conversation, shift to this conversation. And when I was in a flow state, of having conversations, I wasn't really relying on them as much. They weren't telling me, but it was a constant. They were there. Again, which I was used to, because I'd done this for a month or so with them and done it a few months prior with Mother Gaia. So this was like something my body was used to doing and trusting and being open to. And so when I was in a conversation and it was flowing and I was myself, I wasn't thinking about it. At the moment I got stressed about anything, anyone else basically having like a lack mindset, using specific words that they weren't aware were upsetting to me basically. Or any types of even just like insecurity, like, because I can feel people's energetic fields, I can feel it and it affects me greatly. So I thought my options were to match that, people please, shield and repel in physically doing that and saying what I'm saying, or to remove myself. That's the options I thought I had. But this entity helped me do something entirely different that I honestly didn't really even understand what was happening until afterwards, but it worked beautifully. So this is what I would be doing. I'm so excited. So I'm in a conversation, I'm sitting, I'm talking to some people. We're talking, my energy is like this. I'm open. Not only am I always open to myself, because like if you close off, you can close off yourself energetically, like internally, but you can always keep it open internally too. And then externally, I was also connecting with other people. And then as soon as someone said something upsetting to me, because what I never did at this point in time, I would love to get to a point where I'm just having relationships in my life where I'm almost always feel comfortable and accepted, like I guess critiquing people or just informing them of what they're saying in the terms of the knowledge that I have, and I want that back, like in a constant back and forth, which I do have to some extent with some people individually, but again, this was a large group of people. And so at this time I didn't correct anyone. I didn't inform them of how I was feeling. I didn't say anything, but I also didn't people please. I also didn't take space, and I also didn't get defensive or angry. So I didn't know there was like a fourth option basically. So we're talking, I'm open, I'm having a great time. They say something that's upsetting to me. Like, for example, like I mentioned before, like the word weird. And it'd say, oh yeah, I was doing this and this, and it was a really weird time. That's upsetting to me, right? I would keep my energy flowing here. And I didn't understand this is what I was doing, but the instructions of like where to look, how to move my legs, where to put my attention, how to move my arms was causing my energy to do this. So like I physically didn't know how to do this and didn't understand it was happening, but I talking, this person said a word I didn't like, for reasons I've explained. And then basically what I did is I kept my energy internally open always, but I closed off myself energetically towards them. So that kind of looks like this. I'm talking to them, and then more, now my energy is closed off, and I would kind of more be in a state of I'm not looking as much, I'm not smiling anymore, I'm not happy, I'm not having a good time anymore. Kind of disengaging. Sometimes I would even at that point in time be the entity would tell me to start having a different conversation, so I just turn away from that conversation and have another one because there's just a lot of people and conversations happening. Or if it was really dysregulating, they'd have me go on my phone and watch some videos. So the other thing they'd have me do though is, right, I'm still acting as like my energy's going strong here, but it's closed off here. And then that person would, I don't know, I think it's more subconsciously, they could tell energetically that I was disconnected from the conversation. I was upset. And then they actually almost said that word again, but then changed it. Like instead of saying weird, said strange or odd or bizarre. And then my energy would kind of start to thaw and it would start to open up again. And I would kind of, be more like this, like kind of in a medium, like kind of open. And then it would keep going and they weren't saying anything upsetting. And they were clearly trying to energetically like reconnect with me. And then I was back to being like this, where I'm connected with them again. So it's this constant of like, I'm connected, they said something upsetting, I'm just kind of more like this, my energy's here, I'm not closed off, I'm not, closed off in myself, I'm here, oh, I'll talk to someone else, be over there, oh, like I'm here, oh, now I'm just kind of watching my phone, but my energy's still going here, oh, I'm gonna rejoin, oh, things are going great, I'm open again. It was groundbreaking to me. It was groundbreaking to me, where basically, instead of taking space physically, I was taking space energetically. Not people pleasing, not correcting people at that time, which again would be ideal for me. It just wouldn't have worked out in that situation. Maybe because there were so many people, maybe because I already had ways of doing things with people, and especially if it's for the first time where I'm telling someone I don't like how they're speaking in a certain way, I would prefer to do that individually, one-on-one, build up that relationship, and then when we're socially and maybe there's two people I've already done that with individually, now we're all together, then it's just like open and flowing and free. But since I hadn't already established that with everyone individually, I didn't feel comfortable doing it. Like, even if there was someone there who I do that with individually, where I always am very honest and open and authentic and speaking my mind, if I were to do that in a situation where other people didn't really understand, then my conversation with them would be impacted by all this energy. And so instead, what I would do is bring up any concerns that happened in that large group to that person in a separate conversation at a later date and time. Because like I thought I had to solve everything in the moment. I thought that's the way I could connect the best and the most with people, because I want connection, I want clarity, I want truth and honesty and reciprocity. And so it would really hurt me like to not be reciprocal anymore, because like I could reciprocate people's energy when I was people pleasing before, and it made them so happy, and I felt happy because I was making other people happy. But I wasn't being kind, I wasn't being helpful in the long run, and I wasn't honoring myself. So even though it was emotionally painful for me to close myself off energetically, it was so fulfilling and rewarding in the long run to build up this skill. So that's what happened. I did stay for this entire event. I felt incredible. It was really hard in a lot of senses. And I want to give, just more like examples, probably like on TikTok, like smaller videos of exactly like situations I've seen examples of like lack mindsets and how I respond to people. But basically, the gist of it is I close off my energy. I say things more concise, more blunt, kindly, not, rudely or defensively. But I give a lot of space, like, for energy to just sit and linger, because what I used to do before was just constantly try to, if I felt any drift, any rift of like a severed connection or someone else being upset, I try to mitigate that as soon as possible to like keep the high energy and high frequency going. I don't value that anymore. I think that's wonderful when that's cultivated, but I want it cultivated from authenticity of me being myself, which includes telling people when I'm upset with what they're saying. And that's what I want and desire and crave from other people too. So, this was a wonderful time. And since then, what has happened is there was a couple smaller events, like more like things I was just doing by myself and didn't have to do with anyone I was like in, like socially in my life, but rather like phone calls or places I was going where I'm interacting like with a stranger for a small amount of time, where this entity again would sit with me and tell me exactly what to do and how to act, where to look, how to shift my weight. Like in particular, like shifting my weight was like really paramount in this situation in a way I can't really explain other than it helped me close my outer energy and maintain my inner energy. So after that, I thought they would help me further because there was another social event in December, and I'm like, well, I clearly need help with this again. Like, and it was so incredible. I felt very close to this entity. I felt very taken care of, and it was really wonderful and beautiful. And I felt so happy because I never interacted socially with people like this ever before. And so in December, when there was another event with a lot of people, I thought we were going to do the same thing. And I asked, the entity, Mother Gaia, my higher self, and they're like, nope, you got it by yourself now. You're good. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we've only done one event like this. It's only like a month later. Like, are you sure? I've never done this in my life. I feel actually pretty unprepared. They're like, no, you got it. I mean, we're here for you. But even then, just talk to your higher self. Don't talk to this entity. Don't talk to Mother Gaia. Don't talk to any of your ancestors. Only talk to your highest self if you want to talk to anyone for advice. But otherwise, you got it. I'm like, okay, cool. I guess so. We'll see. And I went in there, and after this, month of preparing with that big event and a couple small events, it went perfectly. It went beautifully. As in, there was a plethora of things that were very upsetting to me. And I maintained my values. I maintained my energy. I maintained closing off my energy, not people pleasing, not masking, not acting in anger, not, getting so dysregulated I need to take space, which isn't a negative thing in general, right? That's a great thing to do. But I did exactly what I did in November, but I did it myself. And it wasn't in terms of, I wasn't telling myself what to do like the entity or Mother Gaia was. I wasn't telling myself, look this way, shift my weight this way, go on my phone, turn this way, look, right? I was just doing it. I was just doing it. Like it became part of my body. It became part of my soul, my energy, and I was just doing it. And I feel so happy. I feel so grateful. And I'm never, maybe one or two times after that, like with small, stressful, short-term situations in December. But honestly, yeah, I think starting January, so it's been like over, 2 months now, and I haven't had any help of that kind whatsoever from any spiritual guide or entity that I have connection with. And even to that regard, I don't even have a constant communication like with my higher self or my middle self anymore either. I'm just doing things. I'm just living. It's like sometimes I've found that you go through really intense periods of healing and learning and growing, and then you're healed. And then you're healed and you're not doing the thing anymore. Like, you get to a place where, even though that's so intense, like, that sounds almost very tedious to just be doing exactly, like, kind of like I'm a puppet almost. But again, I'm choosing to follow these directions. But after that intense of like intervention, basically, I'm like a completely changed person. Like, I am a completely different person in social situations where, yes, anxiety still rises, but it rises. I know how to let it pass through me, and I know how to energetically open and close myself off and just take a lot of space in between what I'm saying, what other people are saying, so that physiologically my body can digest whatever I'm going through before I act. Because I used to be very reactionary of, again, trying to take care of everyone, smooth over everything, or then for those few years, instead I was just acting out of like, well, I'm upset and I'm gonna tell you, because that felt so freeing because I'd never done that before. And now I let it all pass and I don't try to fix anything. I just say small amount of things. I see how the person interacts with it, and if I feel a connection, if I feel they're connecting with what I say, then I connect more. If I feel they're not connecting with what I'm saying, I close myself off to them and I move on. It cut off there for a second. I still really do value being understood, and that's something really integral to me. But instead of trying to force being understood, instead of trying to grasp at that, I let it come to me. And what I've realized is, just as my body requires time to regulate and to process things, and I can only really understand things when I'm ready, other people are similar too. And so, even though I have the capacity to explain things in a variety of different ways that I believe would be helpful, perhaps they're not ready to understand all that, and perhaps just an inkling of what I'm saying might take a while to fully process into their body and system. And by just letting that sit, they actually can come to a better understanding to either be ready to hear more of what I'm saying, or to themselves come to further understandings without me explaining anything. So that has been really freeing for me in my social anxiety, where I felt so closed off internally and then trying desperately to connect. And now I feel opened up internally, and I have more of this gate I'm able to open and close energetically to other people. And I'm so excited. I'm so grateful to that entity and for that time in November. And it just feels miraculous to be a completely shifted person. Again, my spiritual awakening happened in 2024 in May, and it's March of 2026 now. So in under 2 years, I completely healed all my physical and mental health, and now including my social anxiety as well. So I'm just very excited to share that, and it's a very important basis for other lessons that I've learned and insights that I've gained, that I'm very excited to continue explaining. So if anyone else is struggling with social anxiety, I really wish you well on your journey and your process, and just know that healing is possible. It is possible to be healed and to interact in the world in very different ways, and the path to get there might not be smooth or linear. It might be very intense, it might be very drawn out, but to know that we are bound to grow and shift and change, especially when you allow situations to help mold you and to help you embody who you really can envision yourself being, and even more than that, what the divine can envision you being, which is oftentimes more than you can even see yourself at the current moment. So I look forward to making more videos about my journey and my process, and I wish you well on yours as well.